Afternoon. Whoa, okay, we got sound now. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to our session on reducing wildlife vehicle collisions, our 10th year of presenting this in a row here at the UDOT conference. I'm Monty Aldridge. I am the pre-construction engineer in Region 4, and I'm going to do a little dual duty here and moderate as well as present a little bit of the beginning. So I've been with the department about 18 years. All of that's been in Region 4. Like I said, I'm the pre-construction engineer, have been for about 6 years. I've had the pleasure and honor of working in the field of mitigating wildlife vehicle collisions for about 10 or 11 years. Of that time frame, maybe closer to 12. And the other presenters today will include Randy Taylor, and Randall has been with the department for about 16 years, and he has been the environmental year for about 10 years, and he has spent virtually that entire 10 years working with us on helping to reduce wildlife vehicle collisions as well. And then after Randy, we'll have Rhett Boswell, and we're pleased to have Rhett here. He's a biologist with the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources in the southern region. He specializes in impact analysis and habitat restoration, and he's been working with UDOT closely since about 2008, primarily in the southern half of the state. After that, we have Dr. Patty Kramer, you all have probably seen her in the past. She's presented with us many years, and she's an associate research professor at Utah State University and has been working in that entire time on mitigating wildlife vehicle collisions. And I got to say, I had the ability to attend the ICOET conference this year, and so not only is Patty well known here in Utah for the work she does, but she's well known nationally and internationally for her work in monitoring crossings that help mitigate animal vehicle collisions. And so that's our panel for this afternoon. So we'll just jump right into it. Like I said, this is our 10th year in a row, and so we just want to kind of provide a little bit of a recap of what we've done over the last 10 years and where we're going. Probably the biggest change that we've seen in 10 years from my perspective, because I deal a lot in the administration end of this and the funding aspects of mitigating animal vehicle collisions, and that is the evolution and the education process for our not only our senior leadership but also our transportation commission. We've done a good job of telling a story with good solid data of how the safety benefits are exceptional, and we've evolved that through the safety also to start talking about the benefits of economics and how these facilities typically will pay for themselves over a period of 3 to 7 years. And then also it's very interesting because our chairman of the Transportation Commission, Jeff Holtz, has actually recently asked over the last year or so about the ecological benefits, about what that's doing to the size of the deer populations and the elk populations. And so we haven't been preaching that because we believe that's the icing on the cake, and the safety is absolutely the fundamental reason for doing this work. But he's seen the benefits through the educational process that we've gone through with him. And so I think it's kind of a culmination of 10 years of effort that this year, for the last couple of years, Randy and I have been talking about ICOET and the possibility of hosting an ICOET session or a conference in Utah. And so what the ICOET stands for is International Conference of Ecology and Transportation. And so it's where an entire conference about what this session's about. And we put together a bid that Randy's going to talk about a little later, and the culmination of that bid is that we were accepted to host this conference in 2017. As part of that, we put together a video with the help of Nick Newman and our communications group, and I just want to show you here that video real quick that talks about how we are encouraging people to come to Utah in 2017. So sit back and enjoy the video for a few minutes. We should have sound.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's stop. It's turned off. Just a second.
Are you muted in your corner?
Yeah, I need.
Let me help you out.
Yeah, I forgot to do that. We muted it.
Where's your?
Right there, sound.
Yeah. It's up.
It's up. It's already up. Why didn't we have sound?
Why don't you go with your presentation? Figure that out. He's got you up there.
sound. Okay.
Well, it's just background music. There's no text, there's no voice.
But
It's
we do
background
need
music.
sound on some of these, would be helpful.
Yeah.
Is that, you're absolutely the correct one, there's two, there's a mic and a
Well, I don't know.
That might be your issue.
I've never used this sound plugin.
So second option. Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be the only question, it's worked all day, so we
Well, so maybe I don't have the right one, but I don't see another one that sounds.
message them back. It's pushed all the way in. It's stuck.
Sound be helpful on some of these others too.
One option would be just exactly that. You unplug it and use your
Yeah,
speakers.
just unplug it and use your mic.
Okay,
It's your audio.
is this mic live?
We're not here to
Are you
hear
turning
either.
on?
You're not here to hear either.
No, nothing coming.
Well, we should be hearing it here.
I think I'll move on with your presentation. I can solve your audio problem on the side.
This,
You need it for other videos.
Yeah, we do. Turn that thing on. Wait, it doesn't matter, we're not getting it here.
You have your adapter.
Yeah.
This microphone is on.
His features are either so. I think the HDMI is overridden his audio. Get your adapter. We should hear the phone audio on the adapter.
Well, that's not wrong. That's wrong.
yeah, we're just gonna, after the video.
It'd be helpful on the rest of us. It is more exciting with the sound. Believe me.
Okay, we have the option to swap here. Your sound will come through here.
Why don't we swap since it's done?
Your video's done. We'll swap your HDMI and see if we get our sound.
We're not gonna know for sure. But we can try a little bit of it.
I think your HDMI has captured your sound just like it did in the video.
So I guess you all recognize my big oversight when I introduced this video, as I didn't tell you that we were co-hosting with Wyoming. Wyoming has wanted to host ICOET for quite a while, but they actually don't have any facilities in Wyoming that can handle the conference size. And so we were visiting with them. We actually went on a tour of some facilities, wildlife crossings in Wyoming this past summer, and have been working with Tom Hart, a biologist for the Wyoming Department of Transportation, and we started talking to them about their thoughts on hosting ICOET with us, and they were pretty excited. They were, in fact, very excited. If you think about it, an awful lot of Wyoming, the population of Wyoming is just as close to Salt Lake as it is to other portions of Wyoming. And so they are a very great partner for us to team up with, and then also the the U.S. Forest Service and the Department of Wildlife Resources here in Utah. And so that's, I think, kind of a culmination to a certain degree of the way we've evolved as a department. If I would have asked to host ICOET 10 years ago, I think most people would have said, "What the heck is ICOET?" And then they would have said, they probably wouldn't have got it at that point in time. But I think we've come a long ways with our education, and that's happened to a great extent from the work that all of you have been doing in this room. The number of crossings that have been developed across the state have been increasing, and we've been mitigating for those safety challenges substantially across the state. And it hasn't been just a Region 4 thing. It's been happening all over. There's a project on 189 on US 40 or 189 by Deer Creek Reservoir. I apologize, I don't know my highway numbers up there very well, but that's going to be constructed next summer. There's a lot going on the Wanshep to Silver Creek. They're doing fencing on that entire corridor. So, aha, maybe we finally have sound.
Hey, that was sound, huh?
Now he's gonna get a picture for you.
Okay, so
It's your VGA.
I'm not going to re-show the video because you saw everything there other than, you know, the background music is all that you missed out on. I apologize for that.
Okay, I can take them here.
And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Randy, and he will step you through.
We're good? Okay. This can easily come unplugged. Go ahead.
Yeah,
do your
okay,
thing.
great. Well, welcome here to our session. I know it's the end of a big day, but I think we got some action-packed information for you. I know you really came to see Patty's pictures of what's goes on around our highways, and she might even show you a picture of the wolf that came down from Wyoming through Utah, which we captured through one of our monitoring cameras down by Kanab. We'll see. So better leave your time for that, huh? The last 10 years has been an exciting time. You know, it was a lot of things have happened. It was just the time was ripe. Things came together. But it's been fun to be a part of that. You know, we estimate in the last actually 11 years, the projects we've done in Region 4, the south half of Utah, we're preventing about 1,050 average annual wildlife vehicle collisions a year. That's rewarding. And it's rewarding safety-wise, it's rewarding environmental-wise. And to be a part, it takes a lot of people. It's not one or two or three, not even 10 people. It takes a lot. But to be a part of that has been fun. And just like the time was right for it, when we applied for the ICOET conference in 2017, now they only have it every 2 years. They just had it this year in North Carolina. And we were told, well, it usually takes, you have to apply one time to learn it or to get your foot in the door, and maybe on the second time you probably have a very good likelihood. But you know, as we started getting together our application, I could just feel it kind of coming together. It was just coming together. One interesting thing is what other people told us about. Let's see. I'm not advancing. I'm not advancing slides.
You need to close out your window.
Well, I'm there on the presentation, but, oh, okay, there it is. Okay, what'd you do?
I used your-
Well, I tried doing it. Okay, I'll try it again. Okay,
It's magic.
one interesting thing is we started exploring this. First of all, we started talking to other people about it, and we even talked to some of the ICOET people. And it was interesting what other people started telling us about Utah. Well, you hosted the 2002 Olympics. See, now the conference, it draws around 500 people, including from about 20 foreign countries and most of the states. So it's kind of a big deal. But it's kind of interesting to see what kind of perspectives we saw about Utah. Well, yeah, you hosted the 2002 Olympics. You have the facilities. You have such a wide variety of environment and wildlife out here. Clear blue skies and, you know, the red rock and the high mountains. A state that would really be interesting to visit for people from Europe and Asia. And you have the Delta Hub. You can fly in there economically. And we also, we've researched some of the details. Says, yeah, there's that train that comes from the airport to downtown now, plus the track system along the Front Range. All those things are little pieces that make it a good conference site. People are already familiar with some of the interstate and interagency work we've been doing. You know, the Paunsaugunt deer is quite well known, and how we've been working with Arizona on that. And people say, well, you have a transportation system that's second to none. And you've been pioneering wildlife solutions. Oh, that's interesting. It was kind of interesting what they told us about. They said, well, you have the first wildlife pass ever built in North America, the first overpass. And I thought, well, yeah, let me see. It seems like I remember Bruce Bromback telling me that was the first one. But anyway, I wanted to put the date out there, 1975. I don't like just making claims like that. So, this will go out. The ICOET video will be on their website for the next 2 years, and a lot of people can look at it. I wanted to put a date on it, so if anybody has different information, they can let us know. But that incidentally, so I had, I wanted to find the date. I went to our structures people to find the date when the structures were built, and I had Jim McConnell help me too a little bit with the history. And initially, that overpass was built just in 1975. I-15 was a 2-lane highway, and it was built over that one half of it, and it was later that the other half's completed. You'll see that overpass is, maybe it's not the ideal dream design. It's like a little over 20 foot wide, something like that. But it was a step. It was a step, an important step. And it has passed a variety of wildlife over it. And in fact, another thing that they talked about was our partnerships, and they are very important to us. And from that, I'll kind of move on to our 191 partnership with down there with a number of agencies, in which in this instance is the new cattle guard is what was constructed by San Juan County as part of their contribution to the project. No, they did about, 8 or 10 of them, something like that. But this is constructed to their county standards. For us to come in to put in highway-worthy cattle guard to UDOT standards is big money. These cattle guards, double cattle guards particularly, are one of the big obstacles to constructing wildlife fencing and overpasses because of the cost of these. The county stepped up and partnered with us on these, and county roads. In fact, hopefully this will evolve maybe to UDOT obtaining a standard for access roads. It doesn't have to meet the highway traffic standards, that we can build these more effectively. Now, did you have a pointer, Monty? Well, you see on the end, the apron or that wing on the end has always been a weak spot.
Top button. Silver, yeah, top button.
Where animals get through.
Top button above.
Oh, okay, that one. Huh?
Gotta turn it around.
Oh, okay. And in fact, our standard our fencing standard or cattle guard standard doesn't even show closing off this with wiring. We've had to rely upon either maintenance come along doing after it's been installed by a contractor, or good fencing contractors will oftentimes go ahead and put the net across there. But even with the net across, it's a place that they can jump over. Of course, with the double one, you have to do 2 of them. But so on our current project down there at Monticello, that we're just preparing for advertising right now. We want to give you an update on that. It's going to be we're having our PS&E as soon as we get right after the conference, and we're getting that ready to advertise this fall. We have come up with Brandon Wade, the designer on it, put together a standard to put a solid fence across this end. And these will be removable panels. He's put together a design that uses our standard chain link fence parts, including the sleeves. Put it in the cattle guard with these sleeves. And so we'll have one side of it, it'll be fenced off solid on both sides, and one side of it will be removable. We can pull that out, we can be removable, so we can allow larger farm equipment to go through. And it'll also be solid along both sides of the cattle guard, so we don't have that weak spot anymore. A weak spot means a few animals coming through. A few animals on the road means a few accidents. If you're one of those few accidents, it's important. Okay, in that partnership, you'll see we put together a lot of fundings. You might tell, one idea you can get from this project is these don't come easy. It takes some doing. It took some partnerships. You know, we started out with some enhancement funding. San Juan County contributed direct hard dollar funds, and then SFW matched it, and they presented this to the Transportation Commission. The commission was very impressed. We had private money coming in that it meant that much to people. But then when we came down here to the San Juan County Cattle Guards, that's what it would have costed us for their work. But we needed, part of the partnership was we would buy the materials and they would put it in. We would buy them at their cost. We needed more private funds. We went back to SFW. They come up with an additional $75,000 to make that happen. Those are installed right now today, ready for our fence to go in the spring. Then we also had some safety funds. First time we've had HSIP safety funds come into a wildlife project. And I hope it goes well and affects well on safety. These are a big thing, wildlife vehicle collisions. You know, I estimate that in the state we have between 20 and 30,000 wildlife vehicle collisions a year. Now, most of those aren't real severe accidents like our safety program is focused on. But when you're getting in the neighborhood of 30,000 accidents, when you have that large of a number, some of those are going to be severe. Even with a deer that comes through a windshield or something, some of those are going to be. And they add up. You can see from the contingency funding, there was a lot of commitment from Region 4. So for this $1.6 million project, it takes some doing to get them together. And that's one thing that the ICOET people noted. You know, you have experience in partnerships and that. Okay, I wanted to show you a couple of little quick video clips from Wyoming. Who, incidentally, so part of getting ICOET together was 4 strong partnerships with us, YDOT, and we put together a U-Track project to go down, do an information exchange with YDOT this summer. And we went up there and looked at their crossings, and you know, we're not operating in 2 different worlds. We're in the same world, and we want to be taking advantage of what they're learning too. I'll show you just a couple little clips from what's going on up there.
Because if you look at Pronghorn and Grand Teton National Park, they are one of the large megafauna that people from all over the world come to the Yellowstone system to be able to see. If we sever this migration corridor, then we will no longer have pronghorn in Grand Teton National Park.
Okay, let me take it on up here a ways.
Pronghorn migrate in places like the greater
let me go up
Yellowstone
here to
ecosystem
7.
because we have such severe winters in the region and the snow is so deep that in order to have ecological phenomena like
Okay, this is their overpass that we visited this summer. 150 foot wide, has about 4 foot of soil on top of it to plant vegetation. And this is a milestone. First overpass anywhere. Of course, North America's the only place that has pronghorn. And is it a little over designed, 150 foot wide? Well, maybe, but you have to understand, they had to build this first one. When those, in the wintertime, snow here can cover the fence post. they have to get through there. And they had to work. They did build, they build fairly economically, even though they're huge. 2 overpasses and about 5 underpasses for around a $10 million project, including quite a bit of wildlife fencing. And they thought, one of it, they wanted to see, there's a lot of both mule deer and pronghorn that come through here, and they wanted to see how they were going to use them. And the pronghorn mainly went over here, and the mule deer mainly went over the underpasses.
We have to be concerned with all 3 of those components. If we do a really good job of protecting the migration corridor and we build.
Okay, one other one.
Animal migrations in the world. 5,000 deer, several thousand pronghorn. They migrate from the desert up into the mountains where they spend their summers. They are in search of food. These migrations are essentially my life, photographing them, filming them, and living with them, really. Trying to understand. For these animals to survive, they need to be able to move. For the animals, they're worried about roads and fences and housing developments. They move, and if they can't move, they die.
Okay, that's a big message. If they can't move, they die. We can't just fence off the roads. I want to show you something real interesting on this fence that tells something about animal behavior. As they're crossing that fence, I'll back up here. One underneath there.
For the animals, they're worried
Okay, you see that one? Probably one went in front of it, and
about
the
roads and
the
fences and housing developments. They move.
Shucks. Not fast. Not quick enough here. Okay, it got caught. It got caught. You'll see
For
it,
the animals, they're worried about roads
and you see it fall down. And now watch those ones in the background, how they respond to the possible injury that or some kind of a danger there. The front
and
ones.
fences and housing developments.
Okay, they respond. They're pretty sensitive. They're pretty aware, aren't they? We might think of that behavior in a new wildlife crossing if animals encounter a hunter or a predator when they're just something new on the landscape. It's going to register with them, won't it? If they see one of their number fall like that one did, yeah, it registers with them. They have to. That's how they survive. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna close that out. Okay. Okay, the wildlife vehicle collision. Our time, we got kind of a slow start. I'm going to go through this fast. I'm not going to pull up the live side. It's going to pull it up, but it has the data there. The one thing I want to bring out is that I could do this really quick. Well, we just don't have time. Data is so important to us to justify these projects. You can tell leadership, you can tell the commission, whoever you're talking to, forever, oh, we have a serious problem. It's bad out there. It doesn't make the funds flow. Maybe public input might, and that has driven some projects in Utah. But the data is so important. Right now, that the actual reporter, the data is not always showing up there. We're having a little problem with our system, but we got to make sure that it's getting entered in. It doesn't always show up when you pull up the map. Each region needs to make sure the contractor data is getting entered in. We've got to have that history. It's so important. How do you think we know that we're preventing 1,050 wildlife vehicle collisions a a year. We have some ways of estimating that. And that's how projects get justified. Monty, would you like to talk a little bit about the planning and corridor evaluations?
Okay, just real quick, what Randy's talking about, we're in the process now in the state of doing our corridor studies, coming up with a process to utilize GIS technologies to complete corridor studies that become live studies that we can go into and mine data out of and actually populate via our projects. And we're going to use a story map process. And I believe as we move forward, that one of the critical elements of these corridor studies will be the ecological needs of that study. Now, there has been some conversation that we don't need to do a corridor study on every single route, and I will readily admit that we have higher priority routes that we need to look at first. But ultimately, I think as we look at these corridor studies through using our tools of story maps, that we can quickly get with the folks at DWR and get with our traffic and safety folks and look at accident rates, and we can identify what the basic needs would be on any given corridor, so that we have that understanding up front when we're working on our long-range plan, as we're working on projects in our STIP, and we're doing our concept reports. We go to that corridor study that's located in our GIS application, our story map, and we see what those needs are, instead of the way we function today is we get out there in a project team and somebody may say, hey, is there a problem with deer hits or elk hits or moose hits anywhere along this route? And if you have the right people in the room, they may say, yeah, you know what, we have a serious problem here, or not. And so that's one of the aspects of the planning that that we are trying to, kind of a paradigm shift, a kind of a philosophy shift, that we ought to be looking at these things up front, because we have had a substantial impact on the ecology with our highways, and vice versa. The wildlife has had a substantial impact on safety. And I will always put safety as being the driving force behind doing this, and that's never going to change. Safety is the reason we're doing this. But in addition to the safety, we can reap great ecological benefits at the same time, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be trying to do both. So that's basically what I'm just talking about. As you all are involved, I know that some of you in the room will be involved in that process of developing our corridor study process, that literally of how we're going to do it. And you know, I've made some comments in some previous meetings, and I think we're headed in the right direction. So if you have any thoughts on that, don't hesitate to talk to me or Randy or anybody else that you know that's associated with that process of developing the corridor studies, because I think that's going to be critical as we move forward.
Okay. On one vision we have for Region 4 is wildlife fencing on essentially all of I-15 through the region. And this is just the U-Plan map, but, you know, we'd like to, we've already inventory. We know what we have. We have it prioritized where we'd like to go to next as funding's available and all that, and we have cost identified. You don't get anywhere until you have a prioritization and you have cost identified. But would like to, you know, eventually get these corridor evaluations on U-Plan, so you can pull it up and say, oh, okay, on this section of road, this is what's needed, or this something should be considered. Okay, reducing wildlife vehicle collisions, part of a strategic goal, our strategic goal of zero crashes, injuries, and fatalities. Also, it's part of our mission in innovating transportation solutions to strengthen the economy and enhance the quality of life. And what I want to get to on this, we've got to come up with economical and effective solutions. There are reasons why we live here, why people want to visit our state, and if we can protect those values, ultimately it strengthens our economy. I think we better keep moving ahead. I'm going to skip through the economics of this, but you know, Parks Canada up to Banff, they constructed sort of a number of the dream wildlife crossings, and it was interesting when we were talking to the Iqaluit people about possibility of holding the conference here. They said, well, yeah, Tony Clevenger, he came to Utah. When they were thinking of these, he came down to Utah to see what you'd done on your overpass. I don't know, I haven't been able to confirm that, but I don't know who he would have saw back then. But anyway, that's kind of the dream one. You know, in the Los Angeles Times just came in an article in September about Caltrans proposing an overpass over 101 primarily to provide cougar connectivity between the Santa Monica Mountains and the adjacent mountains. $38 million, they estimate the cost of that. About $1 million to get the environmental study going. We probably wouldn't do that. I know that they're looking at, something like the Banff type staples, but it probably wouldn't happen in Utah. For one thing, our proposed gas tax increase is what, like 45 million, something like that. I don't think we're going to be in that magnitude. Okay, they probably have a bigger coffers to draw from, maybe a greater willingness to go into debt, but anyway, for that kind of investment, we would probably be looking at a lot larger. We'd rather have 12 overpasses. And anyway, economical solutions. We're also investigating right here at the existing wildlife fence south of Monticello. We had animals coming around in the fence, going back up into as they're crossing the highway, going back up into the fence corridor and getting hit. We put in this electric pavement, and we have 3 installations of that now. I'm not going to go through this one. I'm going to finish up because I want to move ahead to the other presenters. I just want to say that, if we want to maintain our natural values that we have here in Utah, you can go ahead and start getting ready, Brett. We can go ahead and just plug it in.
You go ahead and I'll take care of this.
And at the same time, keep traffic flowing, the freight flowing. That was the trucks going over there over the top. We want to keep freight flowing over I-70 here, and keep our economy strong. Well, we've got to keep scratching our heads and figuring out economical solutions. And we're glad to have Rhett with us, and from Rhett Boswell with DWR. Go ahead and turn it over to him. Okay. Did you get plugged in? Okay. Let's switch out.
Get your VGA.
Black and white?
We're telling you a little bit about the ICOAT conference 2017. Is one of the, as Monty and I first got thinking about this, we thought, well, one of the benefits of it would be just to provide this kind of educational opportunity on a broader basis to more people throughout. So we want to get you kind of thinking about that. And we thought, well, another thing is the economic benefit, 500-person conference, all the hotel rooms and all that. Go ahead.
Liked it for a second, right?
or HDMI, I mean, we'll see if the, I'm not sure if the sound will pass through or not, but we'll try it. That's not your HDMI.
If there's any questions
Sure,
while
it
we're
says
waiting,
HDMI on it.
we can handle those, but
So Randall, with our past wildlife crossings with the I-70.
The thing with that HDMI, it always comes up black and white for some reason.
No, it doesn't.
What's about the average cost for each underpass installation?
okay, the cost of each
It should be
underpass.
common, right?
Of course, you got the underpass, or that depends on the size, what type it is. And then of course, you got the fencing too that goes with it. So they vary quite a bit. Depending on a canab, we put in the multi-plate pipes that were between 15 and 18 foot wide, the smaller ones. Those are, and again, you say the cost, well, you got, a good part of the cost is one, traffic control, got to deter the traffic or other considerations. And the structure's one thing, actually, the structures themselves aren't that very much, but you're gonna cut through the road, so all the excavation and putting it back in and repaving it, all that. So on the canal job where we constructed 3 of those crossings, plus we did 25 miles of fencing, that was in about the $3 million range, wasn't it? Or it was a little less than that. Yeah, 2.6 million. Yeah, something like that. Now on the I-70 where we crossed, you know, put in the larger L-type structures that were like 26 foot wide and 16 foot high, that, and we fenced off, but we put in 14 miles of fence. That was about a $3 million job for that one plus the fencing. So
So your question's like 2 or 3 million probably per project.
usually it seems like that's about the size. Our current one, you know, we saw the current one in Monticello we looked at, 1.6 million. That's one crossing plus about 6.5 miles of fence, 7 miles of fence. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's.
We're estimating about 260 grand on the structures and 150 grand on the traffic.
Yeah, 260,000 for that one structure, yeah. Well, again, depends on what you include in that, we got all the paving, all the little pieces add up to a lot. You look at the structure cost, and you think, well, that's not much, but there's a lot of little pieces to make it together. Our time's so valuable, sorry we're having trouble, but this room was so busy right before, you know, we didn't have much of a break to get things together, or would have tried it all out. It's not
I'm in the
easy.
HDMI now.
Oh shucks, Patty's on my computer, I shut it down. What did I do with that? Oh, right there. You have to go back to Patty's. You know what, Patty?
We're just gonna have to do it in black and white, I guess. Unless it keeps shorting
Yeah,
out.
I have to go back, that's the way it was.
All right, black and white.
We were thinking. Anyway, I forgot about that. Any other questions?
Somebody ask a question.
Yes.
You showed the electrical crossings.
Yes.
How do they work?
Okay, good. That's very good. We're just finding out how they're working. We're monitoring them. We have 3 of them out. One on French Road, I-15 down north of Hurricane, turnout. One on 191 Monticello, and one at Canab. Those 2 are end of fences, and we're just, Patty has cameras on those right now.
How do they supposedly work?
Oh, okay. They work, they have, the front part of them is a negative. It's a ground. So we have a very positive ground, and the back part of them is the positive. So they have to step on the
You just
negative
run it
and
off a different
positive.
computer.
And the fence, the
Thumb
shock
drive.
is
No,
like,
the
we have
video's
to
on
put on
here.
up a pedestrian bypass, and we have to put signs up. But the shock is like electric fence type shock. And we've done some research on them up to, through Utah State, up to Hardware Ranch. I didn't have time to show that piece, maybe I should have. But,
I'll take it, I got it.
okay.
Is that it?
An objective of 6,500 deer, and we currently are at about 5,400 deer.
Okay, so this is our outreach section that put this together for us, and it's my boss.
The
that's
Utah
talking
Division
on
of
it.
Wildlife Resources manages the Paunsaugunt herd at an objective of 6,500 deer, and we currently are at about 5,400 deer. And there's many factors that impact why we aren't at 6,500. One of those factors is highway mortality. The Paunsaugunt mule deer herd is a highly migratory herd. They migrate off the top of the Paunsaugunt Plateau, down across Highway 89 and out onto the Buckskin Mountain. It borders Utah and Arizona. And every year as they do that, a lot of deer get hit as they cross Highway 89. It's a very heavily traveled road, and a lot of deer get hit. So we put this project together back in 2013. Wanted to try to fence some areas where the deer cross the road, keep them off the road, and give them underpasses where they could cross under the highway and still reach the Buckskin Mountain, but keep them off the highway, to be able to protect the mule deer herd and also to protect human health and safety, be able to keep people from having to have those vehicle collisions, protecting property and also human lives. The first year we had the fence in place, we had hundreds of deer congregated along the fence trying to figure out how to still get over to the Buckskin Mountain. A lot of people were calling saying, there's problems, what's going on? And we just had to tell people to be patient. Research in the past has shown it takes 2 to 3 years for deer to be able to adjust to and learn to use the underpasses that we provided for them. The project itself totaled about 8 miles of highway, so 16 total miles of fence, 8 miles on each side. And then we constructed 2 new underpasses and then utilized 4 additional underpasses that allowed the deer to get under the highway and cross over onto Buckskin Mountain. We just completed the second year of that migration cycle, and we just got back our annual report from Utah State University, who's helped us monitor how things are going. And while I mentioned that it can take 2 to 3 years, we have learned and seen that at 2 years we're meeting all the goals we had. We're able to pass between 80 to 96% of the deer through those passages within year 2. As we put this fence in place, we recognize that we're going to be changing patterns. We're going to be changing all kinds of things for the deer. Some of them will learn how to do it. They'll be able to pioneer and find their way through. Some of them may never learn to get across. We've seen that a majority have, but we've also noticed that a small handful of them are now wintering on the other side of the highway, just choosing not to cross the fence and wintering over there. Fortunately, we have good winter range on that side as well, and they're able to fare very well there and be able to survive just fine as well. And this year we found that we did have a problem on the spring migration as the deer moved back up to the plateau, that for some reason on the east end we were having deer that were coming around that fence end, but rather than continuing around the end, they were turning inside and going down the highway. UDOT and DWR and BLM employees were out on the ground together, and a UDOT engineer recommended we try a new product that's called electrical pavement, or Electrocrete. And so we found founding partners. The Mule Deer Foundation put up some of the money for it, and then UDOT put up some of the money for it, and we have installed some of that now, put it in place, and we hope that utilizing that, the deer will then now be able to repel as they try to turn inside the fence and be able to continue around the fence end when they utilize that area and be able to continue on their migration up onto the plateau. We've had multiple partners help fund this project. The biggest partner is the Federal Highways Administration, provided over $1 million to help fund the project. The Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument put in that grant through the Federal Highway Administration and helped us get that going. We've had the Mule Deer Foundation, Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, each put in a good bit of money, and Arizona Game and Fish put in a good bit of money, and then UDOT has been incredible. They did all the contracting, all the on the ground, all kinds of in-kind work that has helped to get the work done and put the fence in place and the underpasses in place and make them so they're usable by these deer. The happy ending here is that we have been able to decrease wildlife vehicle collisions. Before the construction of this project, we were averaging 11 reported vehicle collisions a year. That's people that had actually called in, the sheriffs came out, and they did an investigation on the collision, and we have been able to reduce that down to 5 collisions so far in the duration of this project, average per year.
So yeah, we have to thank our outreach department. They just barely put that together for us. That footage was actually shot with the drone down there. That was a drone that flew through that underpass. Yeah, okay, so let's, okay, so I kind of want to talk about the partnership and the volunteer aspect of this all, because it's really important, so I'll kind of breeze through these, and we'll get to, okay, so everyone's happy, we got the wildlife crossing in, so when do we actually call it a success? And it's not working. Why did it quit working? Well, I don't have the slides, so. Why don't we get Patty's computer hooked up, and if we have time, we'll look at these later.
While they're hooking up my computer, you give the slideshow top of
Right. Volunteers help us do a lot of work in southern Utah. And so if we don't get to my slides, which we probably won't, I guess the take-home is we have a fleet of dedicated hunters. We have about 7,000 in the southern region, and that's about 7,500 or 75,000 hours of time that we need, that we can actually contribute to these projects. So in a nutshell, what's happened down on 89, it's a highly erodible area. Every year we get washouts in the fence, and we have a fleet of dedicated hunters that are helping doing maintenance and getting their hours, and there's actually just volunteers that are helping too. So I guess that's kind of the take home there.
That kind of partnership is real important to us because we just don't have enough budget to maintain that.
Okay, gotcha.
Just through, let's see, yours, let's trade these out. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I guess you just have to arrow.
I can talk really fast if you can listen really fast.
Okay, well, let me just tell you that it's 5:12, we're supposed to be over 5:15, so you know, if you feel like you need to leave here in a little bit, but if you want to stay here, that'd be great. Patty has some good things, and she gives us a report on that Kanab project twice a year. If you'd like to be copied on that, the results of that, just let me know. You can email me or let me know here, and I'll add you to the mailing list. Go ahead,
Okay,
Patty.
great, thank you. Thanks for your patience. I get to show pretty pictures because I get to use motion-triggered cameras on my work. Always thank the wonderful partnerships. I think that's one thing we do amazingly well in Utah. I work in other states, and no other state works so well together as our Utah partners. My take-home points. Escape ramps work, because I think we've been questioning those a little. Electrified pavement, which we've been talking about, has potential as a deterrent to keep the deer from entering the roadways. US 89 Paunsaugunt project is working, and these new technologies there's some new technologies I'm going to also introduce that we can help us improve monitoring. Escape ramps. This is a ramp in the Wellsville Mountains just outside of Logan. I just love this picture because it shows how many deer are on the other side of the fence trying to figure out how to get across the road. So we still need to do that, take care of their movement, but I wanted to show you how well this ramp is working. It's a new design. It's a box that comes out of the fence area rather than inside the fence. And so yes, escape ramps work. This is also some more animals. That's a bobcat jumping off the escape ramp. Deer. Also, I look at my cameras look at the escape ramps from the wild side to see those last two pictures on the left there, to see if the animals will jump up the ramps, and that rarely happens. Thousands and thousands and thousands of times. The one on the left where it's daylight, I guess I could go like this. Yeah, the one here, thousands of times mule deer, a couple of elk, and a couple of moose have walked by that have never jumped up. I did have this buck here on the right. He did jump up, looked at the traffic, said no way, and jumped right back to the wild area. So for the most part, escape ramps are working. Keep it up. Do not put a post in the middle of it. That's my suggestion. That may not be the standard, but these are all working really well. They need a little bit of space to be able to do that jumping. Electric pavement. Joseph Flower is a grad student with me. He'll be graduated in a couple of months. with a master's in wildlife ecology. He did a really good scientifically based experiment where he created exclosures on Hardware Ranch where the elk come down in the wintertime to be fed by Division of Wildlife. He threw in alfalfa pellets there, and he was tempting the animals to come get a zap to see if they would turn around or come get the pellets during the wintertime. He made his very own a single cattle guard, so Joe's here if you need a cattle guard built. And he worked with the manufacturer of this electric pavement. It's a kind of like cookie dough, and it goes into these forms, and then it's a carbon with flecks of metal in it, and then it's charged with a negative and a positive slab, and so your animal is supposed to complete the circuit and get zapped. And so the goal was to see, could we prevent them from coming in and getting fed? And Joe did a great 15-second video here. He did several, but just to show you how well it worked. Also, look at the snow conditions when there's snow. It's a really important factor. So it worked really well in the wild conditions. We tried to see how well it would work in asphalt in real world along I-15. We've only got 1 n equals 1, which is not good enough for science, but we're getting there. We put cameras on there, and when you've got pavement and hoofed animals, it works 54% of the time. This particular deer repelled, but other ones were touching the pavement in the way the manufacturer said would work, and they weren't getting zapped. So we still have some work to do because their hooves are really good. My dog stepped on this mat and yelped and cried and jumped back in the car. So I know if you have a padded foot, it works, but if you're hooved, it may not work very well. So we're still working on that to try and figure out how do you get them to zap like we did so well at the Hardware Ranch. And so Randall explained this mat at the east end of the Paunsaugunt project. I stuck cameras on there a few weeks ago. I'll go back and see how that worked. Giving an update on the Paunsaugunt project. Again, some of you don't know this. I always like to start at ground zero. Oh, this just doesn't do like mine. Okay, that red arrow shows you where this Paunsaugunt project is in relation to where you are in Utah. There was 4 existing structures, and we put in 3 wildlife crossing culverts. Those are the oblong black circles. And again, 12 miles of fencing to get that migration different, to go through those structures. My study was to determine how effective it was, and that's a really good word. How do you define effectiveness, and how the animals use the structures? Another important part of monitoring, if you ever get to the point where you're doing wildlife crossings, is it helps you do adaptive management. We found out fencing, nothing we ever considered, but fencing for the cattle, that the allotments were on the BLM's land were put right on the abutments of the bridges and the culverts, and the simple fencing that the deer could come over added another psychological barrier, and they wound up bunching up on the fences, as you can see from that picture. And so Rhett and Gary and other people from the Division of Wildlife and BLM worked on bringing fencing away from the structure so that the deer would get through during their migrations. And so the majority of animals, I wanted to point out this big honking arrow here. The deer normally were going right over mile marker 39.5 where this blue circle is. That was the culvert that Rhett showed you in the slideshow. That's not the best place for deer because that culvert's so small. They're 128 times deer have gone through, but they were bunching up on the fence there. These animals move in mass migrations, hundreds and thousands in a couple of weeks' time. And then they run through these. This is one of the culverts that was created for them. I just wanted to show you some stats. The way I do my work is I try to show you how many animals approach some place and then how many of them go through. And so the blue bars show you the number of deer approaches to the different structures that week, and the red bars show you how many times they went through when they're trying to get through. The first migration wasn't very successful. You can see the blue bars are much bigger than the red ones. But as you progress from fall 2013, the middle one's spring 2014, and then the last one is fall 2014, you can see they're starting to adapt to the structures and go through them. They're not just turning around and saying, oh, forget it. And everything's getting much more tight. So there is a learning curve for the animals. So that's the changes over time. I wanted to show you changes in space. So what I was showing you earlier, if you see this high blue bar here where the markers, the arrows going, that's where the deer wanted to go across the road. And in the first year, they bunched up by the thousands of approaches. It could be the same 100 deer approaching 10 times each. But they really bunched up there and they didn't know what to do. Now watch over time, keep an eye on this crossing structure right here. This is the most eastward of the new culverts. Watch what happens between these two bars. Again, the blue bar means lots of approaches and the red bar means who came through. So these were not working very well the first year, but as the years went on, you start to see they learned. This is really new news. This means we can train mule deer better than we can train humans. That's why I'm a wildlife ecologist. And so the deer moved a mile to the west to this structure and are moving to the other ones as well and saying, forget that telegraph wash culvert, it's too small. So we were able to train the deer to move down the fence line, which is pretty exciting. Here's Echo. She was a hit with those of us who love wolves, and she was a major bomb for UDWR to have to deal with people that don't like wolves. So this is like the most hot potato animal on the planet, or at least in North America. And so she came by the cameras in November last year on her way from the Grand Canyon. So this is definitely not the way I made the slideshow, but on the left there you can see a picture of her howling on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. She was collared in Cody, Wyoming, and then the kind of collar she had, the biologist lost track of her. She wound up howling for other wolves in Grand Canyon, and then the next time we saw her, she was dead in Beaver, Utah. But this camera took a picture of her moving through the Grand Staircase. And so it's pretty exciting to have the first picture of a wolf in Utah. I don't know of anybody else that has one, and I get the maps and radio collar information all the time, so that's pretty exciting. She traveled over 750 miles. Then there's some other animals that use the structures as well. And then I just wanted to wrap up my slideshow with new technology. I'm pretty excited about this. You can get cell phone communicating cameras. Now, those are not very fair to people that don't have any ethics when they go hunting, because then they feed the animals and put the cameras on it, and then they know when the animal's there and they come and blast them away. So I don't really want to, I'm not selling that point of it. What I'm selling is that we can know what's going on at anywhere that we have cell phone reception within seconds. And so I have these cameras up around Utah, some Montana, and South Dakota. And this morning, I will show you pictures of the buckskin wash on the Paunsaugunt. These are deer that you would not believe my email. How many hundreds of pictures I wake up to every morning. But these guys just came through this morning while I was making the slideshow. And so you can see in real time what's going on at your structures, and it can also help you see if you've got, I watched the flash floods come through. You can see if you've got some problems with fencing. You could put these on bridges and culverts and other infrastructure to see if something is going wrong. So just to wrap up, there's more research to come, and we just keep getting great results to show how well UDOT and everybody's doing together. Thank you.
Okay, great. On to the banquet. Thanks for your attendance.